President Lisa Martinez stood before the largest gathering in human history. Representatives from every nation on Earth filled the global parliament chamber, while billions more watched through screens and neural feeds across the planet and its colonies. Above them all, she knew the Zephyrian fleet was listening, expecting to hear humanity surrender. She had spent the last 60 hours in constant meetings. Defense Secretary Jake Morrison had briefed her on military capabilities she never knew existed. Dr. Amanda Foster had shown her research projects that had been hidden in deep bunkers for decades. The whole time, the countdown to the alien deadline had continued like a death watch. Citizens of Earth and humanity throughout the stars, Martinez began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced sound system. 72 hours ago, the Galactic Federation delivered an ultimatum. They demanded that we surrender our right to grow, to learn, to reach for something better than what we are today. The chamber was completely silent. Even the rustle of papers had stopped as everyone waited for the words that would shape humanity's future. They told us that we are primitive. They told us that we are dangerous. They told us that we must be controlled for the good of the galaxy. Martinez paused, letting her eyes sweep across the assembled representatives. I am here to give them our answer. Defense Secretary Morrison was watching his tablet carefully. Around the world, hidden installations were receiving coded signals. Facilities that had been built in secret over the past 20 years were coming online. The Protocol 7 activation had begun the moment the Zephyrian ambassador had left Earth. We reject their ultimatum, Martinez declared, and the words seemed to hit the chamber like a physical force. We reject their assumption that we must choose between safety and freedom. We reject their claim that humanity's future belongs to anyone but humanity itself. Across the solar system, Captain Ryan Burke was receiving the transmission aboard his patrol ship near the asteroid belt. His small crew had been monitoring alien fleet movements for weeks, cataloging their positions and capabilities. Like every military unit in the Earth Defense Force, they had been waiting for this moment. Burke activated his ship's secure communications array. Within minutes, similar ships throughout the system would know that the wait was over. The aliens had made their choice, and now humanity would make theirs. Back in the Parliament chamber, Martinez continued her address. The Federation believes that strength comes from controlling others. They have ruled the galaxy for centuries through fear and intimidation. Today, they will learn what real strength looks like. Dr. Foster was monitoring feeds from research installations around the world. The Kepler facility in Antarctica was fully operational. The Darwin complex beneath the Pacific Ocean was running at capacity. The Tesla installation in orbit around Mars was ready for immediate deployment. Projects that had been theoretical just days ago were becoming reality. Morrison received a message on his tablet and nodded to the president. Phase 1 was complete. Hidden defensive systems throughout human space had activated without triggering alien sensors. The galaxy thought they were watching a primitive species prepare for surrender. They had no idea they were looking at the most advanced military network ever created by humanity. For 20 years since we first detected alien signals in deep space, we have been preparing for this day, Martinez announced. Not because we wanted war, but because we understood that freedom must be defended. Every colony established, every research project funded, every defensive system built has been part of a single plan. Commander Nicole Price was deep underground in the Rocky Mountain facility, watching as massive screens displayed the status of defensive networks across 3 star systems. Her teams had spent years building and testing systems that existed nowhere in known galactic technology databases. Human innovation had gone directions that alien civilizations had never considered. The hidden facilities that Dr. Foster had been coordinating represented the greatest scientific undertaking in human history. While diplomats like Kyle Henderson had been building relationships with alien species, scientists had been analyzing every piece of alien technology they could acquire. They had not just copied existing designs, they had improved them. The Federation assumes that our recent arrival in space makes us weak, Martinez continued. They forget that humanity spent thousands of years fighting for survival on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to adapt or die. We learned to innovate or perish. Those lessons did not end when we reached the stars. General Ben Carter was coordinating with resistance cells throughout the human colonies. These groups had been established as part of normal colonial security, but their true purpose was becoming clear. Every human settlement beyond Earth had been built with defense in mind. What looked like farming communities and mining operations were actually military installations in disguise. The alien fleets surrounding human space had positioned themselves to attack major population centers. Their strategy was based on the assumption that humans would surrender rather than see their cities destroyed. They did not understand that humanity had been preparing for total war since the day they first looked up at the stars and wondered who else might be out there. Morrison stood and approached the podium as Martinez stepped aside. His military bearing was evident as he addressed the galaxy. To the Zephyrian Empire and their allies, we offer you one opportunity to withdraw from human space peacefully. You have 1 hour to begin moving your fleets beyond our territorial boundaries. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. The humans were issuing an ultimatum to the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Dr. Foster activated her communicator and sent signals to research teams across human space. The projects they had been developing in secret were about to face their ultimate test. Technologies that existed nowhere else in the galaxy were about to be deployed against enemies who had no idea such capabilities were possible. Burke received the withdrawal ultimatum aboard his ship and almost laughed. The alien fleet commander probably thought the humans had lost their minds. A species that had been in space for less than a century was threatening civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. The aliens would learn soon enough that time and space did not automatically translate to military superiority. Martinez returned to the podium for her closing statement. We did not choose this conflict. We hoped that reason and mutual respect would guide our relationship with galactic civilization. The Federation has decided otherwise. They have chosen to see humanity as a threat rather than a partner. Today they will discover how right they were. The president looked directly into the main camera, knowing that her words were being transmitted throughout the galaxy. To every human in the colonies, on Earth, or traveling between the stars, remember this day. Remember that when given the choice between freedom and safety, we chose freedom. Remember that when asked to surrender our future, we chose to fight for it instead. Nicole Price watched her screens as defensive systems throughout human space changed from standby to active status. Weapons that had never been tested in actual combat were powering up. Ships that had been disguised as civilian vessels were revealing their true nature. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had been playing a different game entirely. The Federation wanted to know if humanity was truly dangerous, Martinez concluded. In 1 hour, when their fleets refuse to withdraw from our space, they will have their answer. We are not dangerous because we are primitive or aggressive. We are dangerous because we are free, and we intend to remain that way. As the president finished speaking, Morrison activated the final phase of Protocol 7. Across human space, military commanders received their orders. The countdown to humanity's first galactic war had begun. The alien fleets waited in space, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea that in less than an hour, they would face an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humanity was about to teach the universe a lesson about the difference between ruling through fear and fighting for survival. The die was cast. The galaxy would never be the same. Kyle Henderson stood in the Great Hall of the United Nations building in New Geneva, watching the massive alien figure before him with growing unease. The Zephyrian ambassador was nearly 3 meters tall, with skin that shifted between blue and silver like liquid metal. Its forearms moved in precise patterns as it spoke, and its voice carried the weight of absolute authority that came from representing the most powerful empire in the known galaxy. Your species has exactly 72 hours to comply with our demands, the alien said, its translator making the words sound cold and final. Earth will surrender all rights to technological development beyond your current level. You will accept status as a protected primitive species under Galactic Federation oversight. Any attempt to advance beyond pre-approved limits will result in immediate intervention. Kyle felt his jaw clench but kept his expression neutral. As Earth's primary diplomatic liaison with the Galactic Federation, he had spent 5 years trying to navigate the complex politics of alien civilizations. He had hoped that humanity's recent achievements in space travel and energy production would earn them respect among the stars. Instead, it had apparently earned them fear. The Zephyrian continued speaking as if Kyle were a child being given simple instructions. Your aggressive nature and unpredictable development patterns pose a threat to galactic stability. The Federation Council has voted unanimously. 12 of our most advanced civilizations support this decision. Your compliance is not a request. It is a requirement. Behind Kyle, President Lisa Martinez sat at the negotiating table with her advisors. Her face showed no emotion, but Kyle had worked with her long enough to recognize the steel in her eyes. Defense Secretary Jake Morrison was taking notes on his tablet, his military bearing evident even while seated. Dr. Amanda Foster, their chief science advisor, had gone pale when the ultimatum was first delivered an hour ago. Kyle had been Earth's voice in countless diplomatic meetings over the years. He had negotiated trade agreements, settled territorial disputes, and worked tirelessly to build relationships with dozens of alien species. Now all of that work seemed meaningless. The galaxy had decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to grow. The Zephyrian ambassador gestured toward the massive view screen behind it. Images appeared showing the alien fleets that had quietly surrounded Earth's solar system over the past month. Hundreds of ships, each one capable of destroying entire cities with a single shot. The message was clear: submit or be destroyed. Your military capabilities are primitive compared to ours, the ambassador stated. Your technology is centuries behind our least advanced member species. Your population centers are undefended against modern weapons. Compliance ensures your survival as a species. Resistance ensures your extinction. President Martinez finally spoke, her voice steady and calm. And if we accept your terms, what happens to humanity's future? Do we remain frozen at our current level forever? Do our children grow up knowing they can never reach for the stars? The alien's expression shifted slightly, what might have been the equivalent of a condescending smile. Your children will be safe. They will be fed. They will be protected from the dangers of unchecked technological advancement. Many species have found contentment in such arrangements. Kyle translated this in his mind. Many species had become pets, essentially, kept alive and comfortable but never allowed to truly live. Dr. Foster leaned forward. What about our research into medical advancement? We're on the verge of eliminating several diseases that have plagued humanity for centuries. Surely that poses no threat to anyone. All research beyond approved parameters will cease, the ambassador replied without hesitation. The Federation will provide medical assistance as needed. Your crude attempts at genetic modification and life extension are unnecessary and potentially dangerous. Kyle watched as something shifted in the room's atmosphere. The 3 humans at the table exchanged glances that spoke volumes. He had seen this look before, during his years in the military before joining the diplomatic corps. It was the look of soldiers who had just been pushed too far. Defense Secretary Morrison closed his tablet and looked directly at the alien. You mentioned 12 civilizations supporting this decision. What about the other 43 members of the Federation? Did they get a vote in humanity's future? The Zephyrian's 4 arms gestured dismissively. The lesser species rarely involve themselves in such decisions. This is a matter for civilizations that understand the true stakes involved. The lesser species, President Martinez repeated slowly. Is that how you see us? It is what you are, the ambassador replied with brutal honesty. You achieved spaceflight less than a century ago. Your first contact with galactic civilization occurred 5 years ago. You have not earned the right to influence decisions that affect the stability of systems that have existed for millennia. Kyle felt the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. He had spent years learning about different alien cultures, studying their histories and social structures. The Zephyrians were indeed ancient and powerful, but they had also grown complacent over the centuries. They ruled through strength and assumed that strength alone determined worth. President Martinez stood up slowly, and Kyle noticed that both Morrison and Dr. Foster were watching her carefully. There was something happening here that went beyond diplomatic protocol. 72 hours, she said, not really asking for confirmation. 72 hours, the ambassador agreed. After that time, if your compliance has not been formally announced and verified, the Federation fleet will begin enforcement actions. Your major population centers will be targeted first to minimize resistance. The process will be swift and final. Kyle realized that the alien was describing the systematic destruction of human civilization with the same tone one might use to discuss pest control. To the Zephyrians, that's all humanity represented. An infestation that had grown too large and needed to be managed. President Martinez nodded once. Then we have nothing further to discuss today. Ambassador, you will have our answer within your deadline. The Zephyrian seemed satisfied with this response. It had expected immediate submission, but 72 hours to organize a surrender ceremony seemed reasonable. As the massive alien departed, Kyle noticed that none of the humans seemed particularly concerned about the fleet surrounding their planet. After the ambassador left, President Martinez turned to her advisors. Kyle remained in the room, knowing that his diplomatic career was about to change dramatically. Jake, she said to Morrison, how long until Protocol 7 can be fully activated? Morrison checked his watch. 18 hours for full deployment. 12 hours for basic readiness. Dr. Foster was already pulling up files on her tablet. The underground facilities have been on standby for 3 weeks. They were expecting this. Kyle realized that humanity had been preparing for this moment. While he had been working to build relationships with alien civilizations, others had been preparing for the day those relationships would fail. President Martinez looked out the window at the clear sky, knowing that beyond it waited a fleet capable of destroying everything she had sworn to protect. Her next words would echo through history. Then let's show the galaxy what happens when you corner a species that has spent its entire existence fighting for survival. Dr. Helen Chang stood in her laboratory deep beneath the Australian desert, watching as her team prepared to deploy humanity's most terrible weapon. It was not a bomb or a gun. It was something far worse from the alien perspective. It was human, creativity unleashed without moral restraints. The war had been raging for 8 months since the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet at Jupiter. What had started as a simple police action against a primitive species had become a galactic nightmare. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing, their economy devastated by constant human attacks on supply lines and industrial facilities. Chang's current project involved converting asteroid mining equipment into kinetic bombardment systems. The same tools used to extract valuable minerals could be repurposed to launch chunks of rock at near light speed toward enemy installations. What had been peaceful industrial equipment became weapons of mass destruction with simple programming changes. Final calculations are complete, reported her assistant, Dr. Peter Wilson. We can target the Zephyrian shipyards in the Vega system with 97% accuracy. Impact velocity will be sufficient to destroy their orbital manufacturing facilities. Chang nodded, reviewing the targeting data on her screen. The aliens had never considered that civilian technology could be weaponized so easily. They built their industries and military assets separately, never imagining that an enemy might turn construction equipment into instruments of war. Meanwhile, Admiral Tony Brooks was leading the human counteroffensive from his flagship in the Alpha Centauri system. His fleet had grown from a handful of disguised warships to over 300 vessels, all built in hidden shipyards that the aliens had never detected. Human industrial capacity was proving to be humanity's greatest asset. Status. Report from all task forces, Brooks ordered from his command chair. Task Force Alpha has successfully destroyed the Rigel trade hub, came the first report. Estimated economic damage to the Federation exceeds 2 trillion credits. Task Force Bravo reports successful strikes on military installations in the Sirius system, came the second. Enemy fleet strength reduced by 40% in that sector. Brooks listened to report after report of successful operations. Human forces were not trying to occupy alien territory. They were systematically destroying the infrastructure that held galactic civilization together. Every trade route disrupted, every manufacturing center destroyed, Every communication relay knocked offline weakened the Federation's ability to coordinate their war effort. The strategy was brutally effective because it targeted the one thing the aliens had never learned: to protect their economy. For centuries, the Galactic Federation had maintained peace through military superiority. They had never faced an enemy capable of attacking their civilian infrastructure while avoiding direct confrontation with their main fleets. Captain Lisa Santos commanded one of the most successful human raider squadrons. Her 3 ships specialized in striking deep into alien territory, hitting targets that the enemy considered completely secure. Her latest mission involved disrupting the main communication network that connected 12 star systems. Approaching the relay station, reported her navigator. No sign of military escort vessels. Santos smiled grimly. The aliens still had not learned to protect their civilian installations. They kept their military forces concentrated around major fleet bases, leaving their infrastructure vulnerable to exactly the kind of attacks that humans specialized in. "Deploy the virus packages," she ordered. Her ships released clouds of microscopic machines designed by human engineers to infiltrate alien computer systems. The nanobots would spread throughout the communication network, carrying programs that would cause systematic failures over the coming weeks. By the time the aliens discovered the sabotage, the damage would be irreversible. Back on Earth, Defense Secretary Jake Morrison was coordinating the global war effort from the Pentagon's deep command bunkers. His screen showed human operations across dozens of star systems, each one designed to inflict maximum economic damage with minimal military risk. "Sir, we're receiving reports of alien civilian vessels requesting safe passage through human-controlled space," reported his aide. Morrison considered this development. Alien merchant ships were abandoning trade routes that had been profitable for centuries because human raiders had made commerce impossible. The galactic economy was grinding to a halt as entire civilizations found themselves unable to maintain the trade relationships that supported their populations. "Grant safe passage to any vessel that agrees to carry our terms for negotiation to their home governments," Morrison decided. "It's time to let the galaxy know what it will cost to continue this war." Dr. Chang's team had completed their modifications to the mining equipment. What had once been used to build human colonies was now capable of destroying alien worlds. The transformation represented everything that terrified the galaxy about humanity. Humans could turn anything into a weapon when survival was at stake. "Kinetic. Bombardment system is ready for deployment," Wilson reported. "We can begin targeting enemy installations within 6 hours." Chang paused before giving the final authorization. The weapons she had created could end the war quickly by destroying the alien military's ability to function. They could also kill millions of innocent beings who had no part in the decision to attack humanity. "Begin with military targets only," she finally decided. "Let them see what we're capable of before we decide how far we're willing to go." Admiral Brooks received confirmation that the bombardment systems were operational. His fleet was positioned to protect the weapon platforms while they began their systematic destruction of enemy military installations. The aliens would have to choose between accepting human terms or watching their entire military infrastructure turn to rubble. "Open a channel to the Zephyrian High Command," Brooks ordered. The alien commanders appeared on his screen, their faces showing the strain of 8 months of constant defeat. The empire that had once ruled half the galaxy was now struggling to maintain control of its core systems. "Admiral Brooks," the Zephyrian Supreme Commander acknowledged. "We are prepared to discuss terms." "The terms are simple," Brooks replied. "Complete withdrawal from all human territory. Formal recognition of humanity's right to self-determination. Reparations for the damage caused by your unprovoked attack. Accept these terms, or watch us demonstrate what human ingenuity can accomplish." When we stop holding back, Santos and her raider squadron were already moving toward their next target. The alien communication network was failing across multiple systems, leaving enemy fleets unable to coordinate their movements. Human forces could now operate with complete tactical superiority, striking wherever they chose without fear of organized resistance. The galaxy was learning that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their military tactics. It was their ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. Every alien weapon system had been studied and countered. Every defensive strategy had been anticipated and defeated. Every economic choke point had been identified and targeted. Chang watched as her kinetic bombardment systems began their work. Chunks of rock accelerated to incredible speeds, struck alien military installations with devastating precision. The same principles used to mine asteroids were now being used to destroy the infrastructure that supported galactic civilization. The Zephyrian Supreme Commander looked at the reports flooding in from across his empire. Military bases were being destroyed by weapons that appeared to be simple mining equipment. Trade routes were failing as human raiders struck with impunity. Communication networks were collapsing due to sabotage programs that his technicians could not counter. How did a primitive species develop such capabilities, he asked his advisors. They are not primitive, came the reluctant admission. They never were. We simply refused to recognize their true potential until it was too late. Morrison received reports that alien governments across the galaxy were beginning to reconsider their support for the war. The economic cost of fighting humanity was bankrupting entire civilizations. The Federation that had seemed invincible 8 months ago was coming apart as member species decided that their survival was more important than galactic politics. The humans had proven their point. They were not dangerous because they were aggressive or primitive. They were dangerous because they were free, and they would pay any price to remain that way. The galaxy was learning that the cost of trying to cage human ambition was higher than anyone had imagined. The war was far from over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had shown the galaxy what happened when a species that had spent its entire existence fighting for survival was finally pushed too far. The universe would never underestimate them again. The attack began exactly 1 hour after humanity's ultimatum expired. Lieutenant Commander Sophie Graham watched from the bridge of her destroyer as the Zephyrian fleet moved toward the Jupiter mining stations with the confidence of predators approaching helpless prey. The alien commander had dismissed the human withdrawal demand with contempt, ordering an immediate assault on what their sensors identified as lightly defended industrial facilities. Graham's ship was one of 12 vessels hiding in the asteroid field between Jupiter and Mars. To alien sensors, they appeared to be civilian mining ships continuing their regular operations. The Zephyrians had no idea they were looking at the most advanced warships ever built by human hands. The alien fleet consisted of 47 heavy cruisers and over 200 smaller vessels. Each cruiser was capable of destroying a city with a single bombardment. Against any other species in the galaxy, such a force would guarantee immediate surrender. The Zephyrians were about to learn that humans were not like any other species. Target acquisition complete, reported Chief Tactical Officer Danny Roberts from his station. All enemy vessels are locked and tracked. Graham nodded, watching the alien formation on her main display. They were moving in standard Zephyrian battle formation, a pattern that had been unchanged for over 3 centuries. Human intelligence had studied every battle the Zephyrians had fought in the last 50 years. The aliens were powerful but predictable. Weapons free on my command, Graham ordered. Remember, we make them pay for every meter of space they take. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire on the mining stations without warning. Energy beams lanced out across space, striking what appeared to be defenseless industrial platforms. The alien commander expected to see the installations destroyed instantly, clearing the way for the main assault on Earth itself. Instead, the mining stations absorbed the impacts and returned fire with weapons that should not have existed. The defensive platforms revealed their true nature as disguised fortress installations, bristling with energy weapons and missile systems that had been hidden from alien scanners for years. Engineer Carlos Rodriguez was deep inside one of those stations, monitoring power systems that were performing beyond their original specifications. The defensive grid had been designed to look like normal mining equipment, while actually housing weapon systems based on captured alien technology. But human engineers had not simply copied alien designs, they had improved them. Power output at 130% of alien baseline, Rodriguez reported to his commander. Heat dissipation systems holding steady. We can maintain this rate of fire indefinitely. The Zephyrian commander watched in shock as his energy weapons failed to penetrate what his sensors had identified as simple industrial shielding. The mining stations were not only surviving the bombardment but fighting back with weapons that matched his own heavy cruisers for destructive power. Graham chose that moment to spring her trap. All ships attack pattern Delta. Show them what real space combat looks like. The 12 human warships dropped their camouflage and struck the alien formation from behind. Their weapons had been designed specifically to counter Zephyrian defensive technology. Energy beams that could penetrate alien armor struck with surgical precision, targeting engine systems and weapon arrays rather than attempting to destroy entire ships. The result was devastating. Within the first 30 seconds of combat, 6 alien cruisers were dead in space, their propulsion systems disabled, and their weapons offline. The human ships moved through the enemy formation like sharks, striking and disappearing back into the asteroid field before return fire could target them. Direct hit on the command cruiser, Roberts reported. Their main communication array is down. The Zephyrian fleet found itself fighting an enemy that refused to engage in the traditional manner. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, fired with incredible accuracy, and vanished again before defensive weapons could respond. It was like trying to fight ghosts. Rodriguez watched his instruments as the mining stations continued their bombardment of the remaining alien vessels. The power systems were holding perfectly, drawing energy from sources the aliens could not detect. Hidden fusion reactors built into the asteroids themselves provided unlimited power for the defensive systems. The human strategy was becoming clear to the surviving Zephyrian commanders. This was not a desperate last stand by a primitive species. This was a carefully planned military operation, executed by forces that had been preparing for this exact scenario. The humans had turned their entire outer system into a killing ground. Graham's destroyer emerged from behind a massive asteroid to find itself facing a Zephyrian battleship that had broken away from the main formation. The alien vessel was 3 times larger than her ship and mounted weapons that could destroy her with a single hit. By every measure of traditional space combat, she should have retreated immediately. Instead, she ordered a direct attack. "Full power to forward weapons," she commanded. "Target their shield generators and fire everything we have." The human destroyer's weapons were based on principles the Zephyrians had never encountered. Instead of trying to overwhelm alien shields with brute force, they used focused energy bursts designed to create resonance failures in the shield matrix. The alien battleship's defenses collapsed in seconds, leaving it vulnerable to conventional weapons. "Shield generators down," Roberts reported, targeting their main reactor. "Fire," Graham ordered. The Zephyrian battleship died in a brilliant explosion that lit up the asteroid field. A vessel that had terrorized star systems for decades was destroyed by a single human ship 1/3 its size. The message was clear. Size and age meant nothing against superior tactics and technology. Rodriguez received reports from other mining stations throughout the system. Every human installation was not only surviving the alien assault, but inflicting massive casualties. On the attacking fleets, the Zephyrians had expected to crush human resistance within hours. Instead, they were losing ships at a rate that would bankrupt their empire. The surviving alien commanders tried to regroup, but the human forces gave them no time to reorganize. More ships appeared from hiding places throughout the asteroid belt, each one perfectly positioned to attack alien vessels from unexpected angles. The Zephyrians found themselves surrounded by enemies they had not known existed. Graham coordinated with the other human commanders through encrypted channels that alien technology could not intercept. The communication system was based on quantum entanglement principles that most galactic civilizations had dismissed as impractical. Humans had made it work through pure determination and innovative engineering. "Alpha Group, target the heavy cruisers on the left flank," she transmitted. "Bravo Group, take out their remaining command ships. Charlie Group, prepare to intercept any vessels attempting to retreat." The battle was becoming a massacre. The Zephyrian fleet that had arrived with such confidence was being systematically destroyed by forces they had not known existed. Human weapons were proving superior to alien technology in every engagement. More importantly, Human tactics were completely unpredictable. Rodriguez monitored communications intercepts from the alien fleet. The Zephyrian commanders were trying to understand how a primitive species had developed such advanced technology. They could not comprehend that humans had taken alien designs and improved them beyond recognition. The few surviving alien vessels attempted to retreat from the system, but escape was impossible. Human ships had been positioned at every jump point, waiting for exactly this moment. The Zephyrians had walked into a trap that had been years in the making. Graham's destroyer moved to intercept the fleeing command vessel carrying the Zephyrian admiral. Her weapons disabled the alien ship's engines with pinpoint accuracy, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. The admiral, who had expected an easy victory against primitive humans, was now a prisoner of the very species he had come to subjugate. "Transmission from the alien command ship," Roberts reported. "They are requesting terms for surrender." Graham looked at the tactical display showing the wreckage of the once mighty Zephyrian fleet. Less than 2 hours ago, these aliens had been threatening to destroy human civilization. Now they were begging for mercy from the species they had considered primitive. "Tell them that surrender is not acceptable," she replied. "Tell them that this is what happens when you threaten humanity's children." The battle for the Jupiter mining stations was over, but the war was just beginning. News of the human victory spread throughout the galaxy at the speed of light, carried by alien survivors who could barely believe what they had witnessed. The species that the Galactic Federation had dismissed as primitive had just destroyed one of the most powerful fleets in known space. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had been hiding their true capabilities for years, waiting for the day when someone would force them to reveal the extent of their preparations. That day had arrived, and the cost of underestimating human determination was becoming clear. The war that the aliens had expected to end in hours was going to last, much longer than anyone had imagined. President Lisa Martinez stood before the shattered remains of the Galactic Council, 18 months after the war had begun. The great chamber that had once housed representatives from dozens of proud civilizations now held only a fraction of its former occupants. Half the seats were empty, their former occupants having withdrawn from the Federation rather than continue supporting a war that was destroying their economies. The Zephyrian Empire, once the dominant force in galactic politics, was represented by a single trembling diplomat who had arrived under a flag of truce. The species that had delivered humanity's ultimatum with such arrogance now struggled to maintain control of their own core worlds. "Honorable President," the Zephyrian representative began, his translator barely concealing the desperation in his voice. "The Zephyrian High Command formally requests an end to hostilities. We are prepared to accept any terms that humanity deems appropriate." Martinez looked around the chamber at the alien faces that had once viewed humanity with such contempt. The war had cost them everything. Their fleets were destroyed or scattered. Their trade networks lay in ruins. Their industrial capacity had been systematically dismantled by human raiders who struck from the shadows and vanished before retaliation was possible. "The terms were made clear 18 months ago," Martinez replied calmly. "Complete withdrawal from human space, recognition of humanity's sovereign rights, reparations for damages caused by your unprovoked attack. The only question remaining is whether you accept these terms willingly or continue to resist until there is nothing left of your civilization to negotiate with." Behind her, Defense Secretary Jake Morrison held a tablet displaying real-time intelligence. Reports. Human forces controlled space lanes throughout the galaxy. Admiral Tony Brooks commanded a fleet that could strike any target within Federation space within days. Captain Lisa Santos and dozens of other raider commanders had turned galactic commerce into a memory. The aliens were not negotiating from a position of strength. Dr. Amanda Foster stepped forward, carrying a secure datapad that contained information the galaxy desperately needed to see. For 18 months, the focus had been on military operations and economic warfare. Now it was time to reveal the true cost of the conflict. "Before we discuss terms," Foster announced, "I want to show you what this war has really cost the galaxy." The main display activated, showing research files that had been classified at the highest levels of human government, medical technologies that could extend any species' lifespan by centuries, energy systems that could power entire star systems without depleting natural resources, agricultural innovations that could end hunger on 1,000 worlds. This research was completed before your ultimatum was delivered, Foster continued. It was ready to be shared freely with all galactic civilizations as part of humanity's contribution to the greater good. We never wanted to rule the galaxy. We wanted to help it grow. The alien representatives stared at the display in growing horror. The medical advances alone could have saved billions of lives across dozens of species. The energy technologies could have ended the resource conflicts that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. The agricultural systems could have supported populations beyond anything previously imagined. The Zephyrian diplomat's translation device struggled to convey his words. You possessed these capabilities before the war. Why did you not reveal them during the negotiations? Martinez felt a deep sadness as she answered. Because your government made it clear that humanity's role was to be controlled, not to contribute. You saw our potential as a threat rather than an opportunity. You chose to try to cage us instead of working with us. Around the chamber, alien representatives were beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. They had not just started a war with humanity. They had prevented the sharing of knowledge that could have transformed galactic civilization. The cost was not measured in destroyed ships or collapsed economies. It was measured in the dreams that would never be realized. Foster activated another section of the display, showing terraforming technologies that could make hostile worlds habitable within decades instead of centuries. Deep space exploration systems that could map new regions of the galaxy safely and efficiently. Communication networks that could connect civilizations across vast distances without the delays that currently limited galactic coordination. Every day this war continues, these technologies remain locked away, Foster explained. Every day, you fight us as another day that your people suffer from diseases we could cure, live in poverty we could eliminate, struggle with problems we could solve. Morrison received a message on his tablet and leaned forward to whisper to the president. Reports were coming in from human intelligence networks throughout the galaxy. The alien populations were learning about the suppressed research through leaked transmissions. On dozens of worlds, civilian governments were demanding explanations from their military leaders about why such beneficial technologies had been rejected. The Altarian representative, speaking for the first time since the session began, asked the question that everyone in the chamber was thinking. If humanity possesses such advanced capabilities, why have you not used them to end this war quickly? Why have you allowed the conflict to continue for so long? Martinez had been waiting for this question. It went to the heart of what made humanity different from the species that had tried to control them. Because the choice had to be yours, she replied. We could have ended this war in the first week by demonstrating the full extent of our capabilities. We could have destroyed your homeworlds, conquered your territories, enslaved your populations. Instead, we chose to show you that your path would lead only to mutual destruction. We gave you time to understand that cooperation serves everyone better than domination. The chamber fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. Humanity had been holding back throughout the entire war. The devastating attacks that had crippled galactic civilization represented only a fraction of what humans were actually capable of accomplishing. Dr. Foster continued her presentation, showing technologies that could revolutionize manufacturing, transportation, and communication across the galaxy. Each advancement represented years of human research that could have benefited every species in known space. The tragedy of this war is not what has been destroyed, she said quietly. It is what has been delayed. Every cure that could have been distributed, every world that could have been made habitable, every life that could have been improved or extended. This is the real cost of your decision to see humanity as a threat rather than a partner. The Zephyrian diplomat was receiving urgent communications from his government. The revelation of humanity's suppressed research was causing political upheaval throughout the empire. Civilian populations were demanding to know why their leaders had chosen war over cooperation with a species that could have solved many of their greatest problems. Morrison stood, and addressed the chamber directly. The human military is prepared to continue this conflict indefinitely if necessary. Our forces can maintain current operations for decades without significant strain on our resources. However, President Martinez has authorized me to offer an alternative. He activated his own datapad, displaying terms that went far beyond the original demands for withdrawal and reparations. Humanity proposes the formation of a new galactic organization based on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced compliance. Any species that wishes to participate will have access to our research and technology. Any species that prefers isolation will be left alone. The choice will belong to each civilization rather than being imposed by the strongest military force. The offer was more generous than anyone in the chamber had expected. After 18 months of devastating warfare, humanity was proposing to share the very technologies that could have prevented the conflict in the first place. The Altarian representative was the first to respond. The Altarian Republic formally accepts humanity's proposal and requests immediate access to your medical research. Our population is suffering from a genetic disorder that your technologies appear capable of treating. One by one, other species began to accept the human offer. The galaxy that had been united in its determination to suppress humanity's growth was now competing to gain access to human knowledge and innovation. Only the Zephyrian representative remained silent, apparently receiving final instructions from his government. When he finally spoke, his words carried the weight of a civilization's complete defeat. The Zephyrian Empire formally surrenders all territorial claims in human space and accepts full responsibility for initiating this conflict. We request permission to participate in the proposed Galactic Cooperation Framework and ask for assistance in rebuilding our damaged infrastructure. Martinez felt no satisfaction in the moment of victory. Too much had been lost on all sides. Too many opportunities for peaceful cooperation had been wasted. The galaxy could have been exploring new frontiers and solving ancient problems. Instead, they had spent 18 months learning hard lessons about the cost of trying to suppress human ambition. "The war is over," she announced. "Now the real work begins. We have a galaxy to rebuild and a future to create together."